Hello and welcome to DigFin Vox, Voices in Digital Finance. I'm your host, Jame DiBiasio. If you enjoy the program, like, share, subscribe. My guest today is Chris Perry, president of Broadridge Financial Solutions, a $28 billion market cap fintech. Chris has decades of experience across capital markets and financial services. We spoke at length about how he sees AI transforming what banks, asset managers, and others can do, and even as the world is politically deglobalizing. Chris talked about the way that technology is making us ever more connected. Chris Perry, welcome to DigFin Vox.
Jane, great to be here. I'm very excited to have a conversation with you.
I'm excited to have a conversation with you. You're president of Broadridge Financial Solutions, a New York listed $28 billion market cap fintech business. You have fingers in many pies across capital markets, asset and wealth management, investor communications, and a storied career in financial services and technology. Great opportunity. And also you happen to be in Hong Kong this week, so it's great that we've had this chance to connect. So just let's start off. What brings you to Hong Kong?
Well, I'm here for the World Economic Forum conference on international finance, and to ensure that I'm staying really connected to the Broadridge Asia business, which is operating principally in Japan, where we have a very solid business and our market leader, and in Hong Kong, and in Singapore, and in Sydney, Australia. So those are our four markets that I want to stay connected to. But Hong Kong specifically is World Economic Forum event.
And what's been the discussion at the World Economic Forum here?
Yeah, I think the main leadership discussion has been about how new technologies are accelerating. You know, we are 3 minutes in, and it took me 3 minutes to get to AI. I would have liked it to be 5 minutes, but it's certainly not going to be more than 5. AI is at the center, with DeepSeek being released just about a month ago now. A lot of conversation coming out of Hong Kong and Chinese mainland about DeepSeek and the disruptive dynamics there. And the opportunity that people have that comes out of competitive nature of the artificial intelligence technologies and the evolution from generative AI to much more agentic AI, and how and what that will mean.
Yeah. So let's take a step back, because you've been in this industry one way or another since the early 1990s. What's changed? Because data and analytics are a core part of Broadridge's wheelhouse solutions offerings. People have been doing business analytics, for decades, if not longer. To what extent does AI and automation, the automation that is represented by today's AI, particularly with generative AI or large language model type models, what is the difference that you see either already impacting markets and companies or potentially impacting them that's different than the kind of data analytics, big data crunching that we've had for a long time already?
Yeah. I love the question, because early in my career, it was anecdotal data analytics. People sort of felt with gut instincts what things were. And then you would hire the big consultancies, McKinsey, BCG, and they would bring in their Ivy League grads, and they would actually take your own data and your own interviews, and they would play it right back to you. But they would do it with immense amount of analytics, a lot of human analytics, by the way, from smart young professionals early in their career who worked grueling hours. And that would end up informing the decisions and strategies you would take. Where we are today is that we have this profound acceleration in the ability for data to be analyzed, informed, and to be iterated on. And that is just an incredible opportunity for humanity, not just business, not just financial technology, financial services, but humanity to accelerate for hopefully a lot of good and a lot of creation of more opportunity. And I like to think about it on the side of the positive. But we now have this move from generative AI to where we can actually solve problems in real time that are done through this agentic kind of concept. So agents can actually take the place from an analytical standpoint and an execution standpoint of people, allowing the people to do even more value-added things if they know how to use AI. So I don't personally believe AI is going to take traders' jobs away. I do think traders that don't know how to use AI are going to lose jobs and have to find something else to do, because the AI is going to, you'll be at a competitive disadvantage if you don't know how to use the AI.
Yeah.
I would also say that as I think about AI, I think about new technologies all the time. We have to leverage them to be competitive. AI to me is in my view in the category of the four great next generation evolution. So the engine, the carbon or steam engine changed the world. Flight and the ability to make the world smaller through flight changed the world. I think the internet changed the world. I think AI will change the world. So that's how profound I think it is, which is different than, say, object-oriented programming or SQL databases, which are profound technologies, but they didn't change the world. They made us more efficient. I think distributed ledger technology is an example of that, and maybe it'll have its influence on changing the world with something like Bitcoin, but that technology is going to be very, very exceptionally used in business, but it's different than AI. AI is just going to get better and better and stronger, and the use cases are going to be more value added. We have in market today multiple capabilities that people pay us for that have AI deployed in them. And how we got there was we embraced AI very early as an organization. All of our associates, 15,000 around the world, have KPIs in their 2025 objectives that require them to engage with AI and use it in their job. We have a mechanism by which we do it in a safe form that we believe, and it's got a governance dynamic around it. But if you haven't heard in my voice that AI is a game changer, if you embrace it and you do it intelligently, the world will benefit, including our health and welfare and all these other areas.
When I think about the first electronification or automation in financial markets, I'd probably go back to NASDAQ, the first automated quotes, and then electronic trading. And electronic trading in equities really came to Asia around 2010, I'd say, after the financial crisis, and had the same impact here as it already had in the United States. The relationship changed between the buy side and the sell side, and off to races. And then it's moved its way into other parts of capital markets, Forex, fixed income. And then it was really, I guess, the iPhone that really kind of led to modern fintech, contemporary fintech impacting retail behavior in banking and so on. Where do you see AI, particularly agentic AI, which I think is still kind of not yet being deployed? That's still on the chalkboard. Where do you see the impacts having the most? Which parts of capital markets or financial services are being reformed, reshaped right now, and what might be around the pike and might start to feel more of an impact, let's say in 6 to 12 months?
Jame, I wish we had hours together, because I was on a trading desk in 1987, very, very green and junior, first kind of job. And I remember when no one answered the phone because we never saw a market that went down 500 points in a day. And that launched the small order execution system. SOES, that's what you're talking about, NASDAQ. And one of the things I love about 30 years of experience is I've seen a lot of these things, and it makes me want to embrace them quickly, because what we have now in electronic trading all comes from that moment in the mid 80s. And today's technology is going to do the same thing. And there's a lot in between then and now, but let me just try to go to your question. The future is here now. Not enough people are using it or knowing about it. And agentic AI is exactly that. Today, people have sort of gotten their head around ChatGPT and generative AI and nice use cases that they could do personally, because what is the power of AI? The power of AI is natural language. Everyone now has the power of eternity and the ability to verbalize in kind of any language a question and now get a conversational engagement that allows them to be effective in what they do. That is what generative AI does. What agentic does, which is the next generation, and those that embrace it most quickly, is where you have applications In the past, you would have taken a person and said, hey, go work on solving this. And they would have done it at human speed. But you'd have felt good because if it was a really competent human, they would have done it intelligently and it would have been effective. But it would have been effective at the speed a human can go at, which is nowhere near the speed at which computing can go. And with quantum computing coming, just imagine the speeds at which this is going to work. And so now as we contemplate business problems and we drop in the power of quantum computing and agentic AI with the human dynamics of iteration, wow. An example that's easy for me to give to people is ride sharing and, an Uber kind of a concept or Lyft or whatever you might use, or Go, whatever it would be. Years ago, there were taxis. Years ago, there were maps. Years ago, there was the ability to call somebody in. Now you open your phone and the computing power can actually tell you where you are, where you're going, how far cars are away, what time you'll arrive, how the traffic works. That's all computing power coming in real time to your hand. Now start doing that on your biggest problem. So now let me just kind of jump into our industry. So a big problem in the financial services industry is reconciliations. We have counterparties and we have to make sure that what we did as a party on one side with a party on the other side, which is where Broadridge plays a big place in settlements in the middle. We settle 10 trillion in trades a day. We play a big part in the middle. A lot of time and energy is consumed on making sure those trades reconcile, like right. An old checkbook reconciliation. And humans are consumed by that. And some humans enjoy doing that every day. The reality is we have found with something that we launched called OpsGPT, we've reduced that by 70%. So the humans now have 70% more time available to do other value-added things. And, will that eliminate some humans? I don't know, from that process, maybe. My view is there's plenty of other things to do that are much more value added, like be working on KYC. And I think that's an area of big problem in the financial service industry. Agents, an agentic AI dynamic that is constantly checking your KYC or constantly checking your your settlements and your reconciliation allows our world to not only go faster, but also be more accurate. And when I think about use cases for AI in particular, I think of them in three categories. The first one, which I think is really important and underestimated, which is de-risking. How do we use AI to lower the risk of doing business? Right? Simple thing is, we know it's risky to cross the street, but we do. Wouldn't it be great if the agent in our body was instantaneously knowing if traffic was coming, we didn't have to look? That's what I think agentic AI will do in de-risking. It'll be constantly looking for risk in real time in business, which I think will accelerate business. Accelerating business with less risk is a great way to enhance profitability.
And just before you go into your other ones, Chris, just so I have a better idea of when we're talking about that risk detection, the early use cases have been things like fraud detection, which is, I think, a very specific kind of risk and patterns that one can easily figure out, I think. It's just a question of then just crunching it. What other ways of risk mitigation or risk awareness do you think that AI is going to enable?
Yeah, well, I have to drive into where you just were a little bit. Is cyber risk is a existential risk for humanity, not just financial services. CrowdStrike happened now 9 months ago, or whatever it was. Look, first of all, thank God that was a software bug, a good old-fashioned bad quality control software bug. For folks who have been in the software business, we had that.
Yeah.
We didn't shut down all the airlines and freeze people. So that was a really blatant problem. But imagine if that was truly disruption of the entire travel system through a nefarious character. And I used to, people in our company and other places, you say, oh, AI is dangerous. A lot of government people, AI is dangerous. Well, yes, but it's really dangerous if the only people that have AI are the criminals and the nefarious people. So we need AI to defend ourselves. And one example of the way in that we'll do is constant and perpetual, ubiquitous checking through the learning of different shared experiences of compromise. And that's a really important thing in financial services. I mean, imagine if you go to your bank account online or an ATM, if people still are doing that, and you can't get money out of it and you can't see your balances, or you can't see your retirement account, or you can't see anything for not hours people kind of deal with. but days, weeks. Just imagine what happens. I mean, I think people will in their heart go, well, I think it's there somewhere, but this is getting really scary because now I need to do commerce. So that's the thing to me that's the most meaningful. That's why I start with de-risking. The second thing in AI, which is how do you become more efficient? How do you have these agentic tools that are representing reconciliations in a more efficient way, or the way in which they can lower your operational costs because everybody wants things better, cheaper, faster. And that's another one. And the third one is around growth, because growth, if you're not growing, you're in trouble. You could die. So you've got to find growth. Growth is infinite. And we brought forward something called Bond GPT, which allows, it complements our LTX trading platform. LTX trading platform was originated on the back of $10 trillion of trading data being anonymously analyzed to create counterparty enhancement opportunity. So one of the things is if you're an asset manager and you want to sell a bond, if you can't find a counterparty, your portfolio strategy isn't going to work very well. So what we've done with LTX and Bond GPT is we have scored bonds on their liquidity value and created a liquidity platform that goes from the asset manager through to the sell side for trading purposes. And then we put a research tool together that allows you to query in natural language very complex questions about fixed income credit bonds and have very quick responses. Tell me bonds that are of this maturity with this grade that have spread values of this and are in this region. And we can get an answer back to a question that on a profound terminal like a Bloomberg will take you minutes to hours in seconds. And that has made it so that a bond trader or a portfolio manager can get analytics much faster. And that's real-time AI querying a bunch of public databases, but also using proprietary data. And we put a wrapper around it so the proprietary data doesn't go outside the house, but it's bringing externally publicly available data together with proprietary data. And that's really powerful to give instantaneous answers. And people pay for that. So that's my 3 dimensions: de-risk, be more efficient, drive growth.
In terms of commercializing these solutions, whether it's by Broadridge or within the banks and asset managers themselves, we're seeing with DeepSeek the possibility that and open sourcing that the reinforcement learning can itself be automated, which drives down the costs of training models, and basically that LLMs will become much more commoditized and cheaper. What does this mean in terms of the way you think about your business? If that layer becomes much cheaper, what kind of opportunities does that unlock, but also what kind of impact could that have on the way that people start to price these things? If anybody can kind of build it very easily in-house, right? So, where do you see that competitive tension?
Yeah, let's just start with the launch of ChatGPT from OpenAI was a monumental moment in next generation technology and society. And, billions of dollars were put in to create that by big parties. 3.5 years later, DeepSeek launches theoretically for $6 million to build it. We know it was a lot more than $6 million, but it wasn't what OpenAI spent. To me, that is the usual Moore's Law kind of thing being deployed in a new era. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I remember when my first mobile telephone was big. I remember when it was a backpack. And I remember when it was, very expensive to make a phone call. I remember calling my father. And I remember my father calling me and wanting to talk. And I'm like, Dad, this is expensive. And he's like, oh, no, whoever makes the call pays for the call. I go, no, the phone systems now have both sides paying if you're on a mobile phone. So we got to go. Now, he could call me. He's passed, but he could call me and we could talk for hours because it's an all-inclusive model.
Yeah,
that's what's going to take place here. And that's going to create great opportunities for small companies to build powerful things that will be disruptive. And if you don't embrace the dynamic as a grown-up fintech, $6 billion in revenue, operating globally, we need to disrupt ourselves and leverage these technologies, because otherwise the next generation of Broadridge is going to come from some people you don't even know yet. And that's the beauty of technology being so cost effective, as the next version after DeepSeek will be even more. And we know we'll get down to where this is very inexpensive. Today, though, it is, if you look at the hyperscalers, they're building massive data plants all over the place, needing lots of power, creating a sustainability question, different conversation, different podcast. But that too will be brought down. And at some point, it won't be cost effective. So that'll stabilize, and it'll be a little bit of a pricing war that we'll be, as customers and consumers, benefactors of.
Well, I referenced the automated trading that was initially big in New York and then eventually came out to Asia. I guess Europe was somewhere along the way. With these new technologies, that's not the case. I mean, with anything blockchain or crypto, you get just as much innovation from Asia as you do in the US. With AI, the DeepSeek shows that maybe not the far edge of innovation that might still be in the US, but in terms of rapid iteration and improvement in engineering, China plays that game probably even better. So, in other words, these technologies are less concentrated in just say Silicon Valley or New York, and the creation and proliferation is a global phenomenon. So when you look at Asia markets where you're active, Japan, Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, are you seeing a convergence in timescale as diffusion of technology and practices in your client firms? Are you seeing differences in the way that people are adopting or using your solutions in these markets? Just give us a sense of what's converging and what might remain distinct.
Yeah, you pose a very interesting question in this geopolitical time. And as the world is moving away from being a globalized world politically to a more nationalized world, technology is doing the exact opposite. It is becoming a very global world. There's no advantage that any one area region has on the surface. I think the advantage that English-speaking countries had, the U.S. in particular, when programming languages were all in English, was a big advantage for many, many years. Today, the innovation, the speed of innovation is leveraging the globe. And the cross-pollination of industry is pretty amazing as well. Years ago, if you were in financial services, your innovation took place in financial services. Today, financial services is borrowing from things that are being done in space travel and all kinds of things. So that's really, really accelerated. I do think something that's really, really important that's getting lost right now is trust. And Broadridge, as a company that's been around, really our inception is 50 years ago as a public company, an independent public company. We really were from 2008, but we are very trusted, and clients engage with us because they trust us. And we're a public, transparent company. Our books and records are reported on a regular basis. We have to live as a citizen of the world on a business level at the highest level of ethics, particularly because we serve governance for public companies around the world. And that trust is really important. The other thing that goes with it is transformative. And that's why we've embraced new technologies and are helping the industry transform at a time when competition is so high. And now that I talk about being in Asia is important when we think about, despite geopolitical tensions and recession and things like that are fearful, GDP growth in this region is 4.4%. That's something, and given the size now of the region, that's a pretty powerful dynamic. The Asian population is kind of a young demographic embracing new technologies that are now available to them. The democratization of investing is on hyperscale as well. And one of our opportunities, our ethos is about making investment available to people and making sure that as part of our mission, making the financial futures of millions of people around the world better every day by powering markets and investing in markets. That's a big part of what we do. So this is a really exciting opportunity in Asia. It's great because the embracing of technology here is so profound. And then there's an important dimension of how the rules evolve. And, we do need some kind of rules of the road so that we don't have a very bad dynamic of players that are not trustworthy. So that's why trust is so important, and who you partner with is going to be so important in this industry. But that's an opportunity for Broadridge as a company.
We've historically, different markets had different behaviors, both in terms of the way that your clients would operate, but also then down to the retail level that your clients are ultimately serving in some capacity. Uh, for example, Japan's got a very distinct culture. The way they operate is different than what people do in the United States or in the UK. Um, and Are you seeing changes driven as technology becomes more globalized? Are you seeing that kind of market idiosyncrasies, market idios, I'm getting tongue-tied here. The idiosyncrasies in marketplaces and the way that people behave. Any changes that you observe there, or is it flattening, or are there still places where it's always going to be a little bit different?
Yeah, James, it's an excellent thought process, because again, we're back to this kind of nationalistic dynamic at a political level is a bit of a holdback, right? It's sort of holding people back. On the other hand, the technology is true democratization for people, and I think that is bringing together these what were historically very different. People say Asia. Well, Asia is very different places.
Right.
When you're talking about Asia Pacific and you're talking about Japan, ASEAN, these are very different places. But technology is driving some heavy similarities. Having just come from Tokyo and seeing how Tokyo is expanding in its own AI adoption, and you probably know that we do a survey every year. We do our what's called the next generation digital transformation next generation study. We do it every year. We just are completing the 2025 one, which has just been released. And it basically talks about how the adoption of AI has just exploded. 80% adoption of AI. The amount of capital being committed to AI right now is exploding. Last year, it was more of I'm watching. This year, it's moving really, really quickly. The adoption of AI in cybersecurity protection is like 87% of studied firms are deploying AI in their cybersecurity protection. Blockchain and DLT. Firms have now said that 64% of the firms are now using DLT as a technology. Now, it's been really around since 2015. So just think about 10 years. We really wrapped our heads around it in 2017, and we built something called DLT Repo. It's Distributed Ledger Technology Repo. It's for the repurchase agreements. And one of the dynamics around repos is who is the actual owner of the repo at what time in the process is a big deal, because if you and I are doing a repurchase agreement together, whether we're departmental inside an institution or we're two different institutions, the moment by which you're actually the owner versus I'm the owner is in question. So you and I both have to tie up capital because it's not clear who's the owner when. When you have an immutable record with DLT repo, it's very clear my capital is released when you're the owner when the token is yours. And that is a very efficient creation element. And that just comes from acceleration of adoption. We happen to adopt DLT as a technology a while back, and we built a number of solutions leveraging the new technology. So I think that, one of the questions that we asked in the survey was, if you had a magic wand to accelerate transformation and create unified platforms, what would it be? And people really want to get to single platform to be used for front to back. The concept that will go way back to the times we talked about before, straight through processing. Mm-hmm. It's a misnomer. It's never really been created with the efficiency that the marketplace needs, because there's a lot of spaghetti and old technology there. And the old technology is trusted and proven. What is needed is APIs that modernize that. And we've done a lot in terms of creating functionality on web services or web services-based APIs that are REST-oriented and can talk to old technologies, but make sure that you can be on a front foot to try to create more straight-through processing, more efficiency. And this is where I think agentic AI can step in and make that even more efficient. Because today humans have to go, chair swivel between platforms, which, just think about it, 2025, and we're chair swiveling between platforms. Agentic AI can really solve that chair swivel. And I think there's lots of companies, Salesforce is being one of them, that are doing it. We're clearly doing it in the financial services vertical.
Big financial institutions, banks, insurance companies are often criticized for still operating off old mainframe servers, old coding languages that aren't taught to young people. Um, and so the thought has been that if the longer you remain on these older architectures, the more difficult it is to stay current or even protect yourself. But from what you're saying, maybe there's an extended time frame for server-based processes.
Yes, an outstanding question, and I'm going to take it right down to society, and then I'll give you the metaphor, or I'm going to give you the metaphor, and then we'll talk about it literally in the industry. Self-driving cars. Have you been in a self-driving car?
No, not yet.
There's some people that have been in self-driving cars, and someday I'd argue maybe the majority will be self-driving cars. But there's a reason why we're still driving cars that we drive, because the entire ecosystem, infrastructure, systems designed for humans to drive cars. We have I call it modern financial industry that is probably 70 years old, maybe, let's just say early 60s. So 60 plus years old. That infrastructure is trusted, tried, proven, reliable, pretty efficient to settle an equity trade, a cash securities trade, and pretty complicated, all the things that happen inside of it. The amount of money, even with modern technology and architecture, to replace all that is sort of money solving a problem that was solved long ago. So why go there? Over time, though, the infrastructure will evolve and we will get to far more modernized environments. You take a language like Python. Is that a new language or an old language? I think some would say that's a really old language. Others would say, wow, I've got a mainframe platform in COBOL. Python is like, the future. So I'm just trying to say, pragmatically speaking, the future's here. We have self-driving cars, just not enough people are in them, using them. And that's what I think is happening in the financial technology space. And there's only so much money to be invested. So I think that companies like Broadridge, who are modernizing monolithic old architectures by putting web service APIs, and we're a multi-platform company, and we have a portion of what we do on mainframes. We have a lot of what we do on cloud and evolving to the cloud. Things are being refactored to the cloud. This is a journey, but our shareholders would not be very happy if we dropped everything and said, you know what, our sole objective is to get rid of the mainframe. And our shareholders would say, well, okay, and what do you get for that? Well, we get rid of the mainframe and we spend a lot of money and we get very little, if any, new capabilities in that, but we'll spend shareholder money doing that. I think our shareholders would not think of us as good stewards of their money if all we did was replace what we were doing already. You don't need a self-driving car right now. You probably have a car. At some point, for all of us, especially as we get older, we might want a self-driving car because we don't want to get behind the wheel, or we're not safe behind the wheel, but we still want to go places. So we got to let this evolution take place. Right now, as I say, is we're building lots of capabilities, particularly in our trading community and capital markets, where we settle 10 trillion in trades a day. We have now added trading connectivity solutions. Broadridge is in the business of providing efficient liquidity for principal and agency-based trading and network connectivity as part of it. And that's all being built on very modernized technology. We're doing it and have been doing it for cash securities. We're in the process right now and partnering with a big bulge bracket bank to do it with futures and options. That's going to be a much more modern version than what was done before. But we're going to keep leveraging this concept of APIs to connect our platform and make our clients more efficient. And then I think agentic AI will step in and make it even more efficient. This will just take some time. I do think, last point on this is, hold your breath. The next 3 to 5 years are going to be pretty unbelievable. I think, if you think about, I don't know when the last time was you got a paper ticket for an airline flight, but you remember when they were carbon copied and whatever?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's probably 15 years ago. I don't know. But today, it's on your phone. And, when that first came about, people were a little nervous when they got the security check that, will my phone work? Will it come up? Yeah, now nobody worries about that. Some people used to get a piece of paper. This is accelerating. And I do think the next 3 to 5 years are going to just be smashingly exciting. We also need to make sure we do it without making more risk, because when you're moving fast is when the nefarious characters can come in and try to emulate you and interrupt what you're doing. So we've got to make sure that we're using AI to defend ourselves as well.
Last question for you, Chris, and thanks so much for your time today. It's spring 2025. You're in Asia Pac on a tour. What should we expect from Broadridge in Asia over the rest of 2025?
Well, I'm really happy you asked me that as a question last, because it's such an important element of what we're doing. We are really doubling down in Asia as a marketplace. We think that the financial institutions are going to be investing here as well. We've seen the ebbs and flows of that from different generations, but we think this is one that's coming. We think there'll be dislocation around the world, which will create investment in Asia, and that'll be an opportunity. We've added senior company officers in many of our locations, in Hong Kong, Wood Callis, in Singapore, Ian Strudwick, in Australia, Danielle Jaras, and Japan is Tokyo is where we run the region from, David Runacres. And behind them, we're investing in people, in capabilities. We're studying the market to ensure that we're bringing to the market the capabilities that are going to help these institutions grow and expand. Because I think the GDP here is demonstrating a reason to invest. And so it's really exciting, and we'll be bringing more solutions, going back to your earlier question around the way in which technology is going to transcend geopolitical dynamics. I just think it will. And so our efforts here in Asia and our clients many of them are global clients, we're going to serve them really well in Asia and ensure that we invest accordingly to help them solve the challenges that they have.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me on DigFin Vox. Chris Perry, President of Broadridge Financial Solutions.
Jame, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you again. Thank you so much.